Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/spookshow. Then go over to morbidlybeautiful.com as we are now part of the Morbidly Beautiful Podcasting Network.
It has been established that persons who have recently died have been returning to life and committing acts of murder.
Have you checked the children?
I want to play a game. The box. You opened it. We came.
Here.
This is the All-American Spookshow.
Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the All-American Spook Show. I'm Josh and I'm joined here with Donnie.
Yo.
And the Professor Smoke.
What's up?
Will could not be with us. He's on assignment, but then he's missing a good one here. This is Smoke's choice. But I'm not going to introduce it. I'm going to let Smoke introduce it. What'd you pick? What'd you bring for us this week?
Oh, yeah. So it's Valentine's Day. All right. This will be coming out around.
Yep. Well, right here, the day before. But there's a good chance most people that are listening to this on Valentine's Day. So there's that, too.
And I feel sorry for those people. No, kidding.
What the hell?
No, I mean, you would expect. We haven't done one of the biggest ones yet. I think we kind of been sitting on a certain Valentine's Day movie for a little while. It's just to give it, give the show time to breathe. It's been 4 years later.
Yeah.
And we're still breathing on that episode. We're not doing it yet. This is not that episode.
Yeah.
This is not My Bloody Valentine. Mm-hmm. We'll get to that nugget, But bear with us because there's not a whole lot of Valentine's Day movies out there. This one is very tentatively Valentine's Day, right? And it's, without further ado, it's Hospital Massacre, a.k.a. X-Ray. And Josh may have more titles.
Yep, yeah.
I'm sure there are more titles for it, and I'll let Josh get to those.
Yep.
But Hospital Massacre was the title I saw it on the one time that I saw it back in mid '80s, I guess, or so. I know it came out in '81 and theatrically, and came out on MGM-UA home video on all the various home video formats in 1983. And I saw it sometime in the mid to late '80s, I guess. Yeah, the Valentine's Day. We'll get to it. The connection there, it is loose, but it's maybe not as loose as some movies, some holiday horrors are.
We have done other ones that seemed looser than this, at least. I'll say that. But yeah, also I'll add that this is a Cannon movie. So although this isn't a full-fledged official Cannon fodder episode, we're basically going to be kind of treating it as such. All the way down to our Cannonball rating at the end. We're actually going to give two ratings for this. We're going to give you our Cannonball rating that we normally do over on our Cannon Fodder episodes like we did just last week for Mannequin. But we're also going to give you our regular star ratings that we give for whenever we do horror movies. So it'll be compared two different ways. It'll be compared to other Cannon films, and it'll also be compared to the other horror films that we've done here on the show. And also, we're going to have a special added bonus Cannon Chronicles with Austin Trunick, author of the Cannon Film Guide, Volume 1 and 2. Out on Amazon or wherever else you get your books. But we'll have that here in just a few minutes. But I guess, before we dive into it and give you the background and give you Cannon Chronicles and all that stuff, we'll go ahead and toss to the trailer. All right, so there's the trailer for that. So obviously, Smoke, I know this is, you brought it to the table. This isn't the first time you watched it. It's actually not the first time I watched it either. I watched it I want to say, give or take, about a year ago, ironically. That was the first time that I had watched it. But, Donnie, what about you? Is this the first time?
Yeah, this was the first time I've seen it. And we've discussed this in various conversations, whether it was on the show or, in some capacity or in our group chat. But yeah, this is the first time I watch it.
We'll get to our star ratings and all that stuff, like I talked about a second ago. But I guess now's as good a time as any to go ahead and let Austin do a little bit of the footwork for us. I've got some background information as well. Here we go.
Cannon Chronicles with Austin Trunick.
Happy Valentine's Day, Spookshow listeners. I am Austin Trunick, author of the Cannon Film Guide books, and I'm here to talk about their slightly Valentine's Day themed slasher X-Ray from 1982. Now, this is a movie that I know better under its more descriptive and straight-to-the-point U.S. title, Hospital Massacre. This was not only the title I rented it under in its old MGM VHS release, but the one that it played under at drive-ins around the country, usually as part of a horror double or triple feature. If you look through old drive-in listings from the fall of 1982, this played with everything from Halloween to Zombie to, weirdly enough, the Christmas-themed Silent Night, Bloody Night, which Cannon had recently re-released under the title Death House. In its earliest marketing, this movie was going to be called Be My Valentine... or else! Exclamation point. Now, after New Year's Evil failed to do the ticket numbers that Cannon hoped for, they thought it might be a bad business idea to tie their movie too closely to a specific holiday, and thus it became Hospital Massacre in the US and X-Ray everywhere else. Early advertisements listed Jill St. John as the star of the film, who was best known for playing the lovely smuggler Tiffany Case in the Connery Bond film Diamonds Are Forever. She dropped out and was replaced with Playboy playmate Barbie Benton, who spends much of this movie either running, screaming, or getting stared at in creepy ways by literally every other character in the film. Being set in a hospital, the kills in the movie are appropriately doctor-themed and, I think, relatively creative. Director Boaz Davidson was one of Cannon's most trusted guys. He created the hit Lemon Popsicle series for Golden Globus when they were still in Israel, and then remade it for them as The Last American Virgin once they came to the U.S. He directed a wide variety of their movies throughout the 1980s and early 90s, including Going Bananas, Salsa, and American Cyborg Steel Warrior. Nowadays, he's a big-time producer with Millennium Media. His name's on everything from the Expendables movies to the latest Rambos to the Nicolas Cage Wicker Man remake. Given what little plot this movie has to go around, I'm going to refrain from commenting on it and let the guys discuss that. I will say that this is not one of the better slashers from this period, but it's also not one of the worst. I think that the fact that it's competently made sets it above a lot of the really cheap stuff that was being pushed out on video at the time. Even out of the few slashers that Cannon produced, I much, much, much prefer New Year's Evil to Hospital Massacre, aka X-Ray. So if I'm going to rate this one, I'm going to give it a 2.5 out of 5. It's a wonderfully average film. And with that rating on the record, I am signing off today. Until next time, and happy Valentine's Day.
So there you go. We thank you for that, Austin. It's always cool to get his wealth of knowledge here on the show, when we talk about these Cannon films. So, like I said, we encourage you to go check out all of our past Cannon Fodder episodes for the lineup of movies that we've done there. And like I said, this is kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out on that. So you just get a little taste of the Cannon Fodder there. And like I said, just last week we did Mannequin, which ironically, this is more Cannon than Mannequin was, because Mannequin was one that was, put out by, it was done by 20th Century Fox, and then Cannon put it out worldwide. This one was actually a Golden Globus production, produced by Cannon and put out by Cannon. So, we're kind of mixing up the themes and everything the last 2 weeks, but you get the point. And the grand scheme of things, we're here to celebrate Valentine's, right? So what a perfect way to do it. I guess I'll go ahead and start going through some of the background information that I pulled. I found 2 other titles other than like we've explained. It was mostly titled here in the U.S. Hospital Massacre, but it also got a title later on, and then worldwide is X-Ray. But I found 2 other titles, and I didn't get exactly where this title popped up, but one was called Ward 13. And obviously that doesn't make any damn sense. If you watch the movie, right? Like, even if you were going to say like, well, that's where the things happened at, I don't remember them saying, if either of y'all do, I don't know, where exactly things were happening in a hospital other than the floors, right? Like 8th floor, 9th floor and all that shit. But I don't remember anything about a ward, but except other than sending her back to the crazy ward with those hags.
Yeah.
Maybe that was Ward 13. I don't fucking know. I don't remember the number.
Well, there seem to be a lot of just, we'll get to it, I know, but there seem to be a lot of mentally challenged people.
Yeah, like this.
Walking all the floors of the hospital.
Yeah, we will get into it. But yeah, this is just as much like mental asylum as it was general hospital, But the other title that, and Austin brought it up there, was Be My Valentine, ... or else. And then that was the pre-release title, and they decided to change course for the reasons that he just explained. But the one thing too that I was able to peg down was an exact release date, because I don't think this got like a wide release in theaters per se. I think it kind of slowly just kind of oozed its way out, so to speak. But it was released October 16th of 1981 in Mexico, and then not until April 23rd of 1982 here in the U.S., or I saw a secondary date of July 16th. So I'm guessing maybe it just played in grindhouses and smaller theaters, maybe had limited runs somewhere around April 23rd to July 16th of 82, and then eventually, I guess, comes out on video or whatever at some point. I didn't see the release date of when the video came out, Smoke, but I would imagine that would have been sometime, 83, somewhere around there?
Yeah, well, I know. Yeah, I don't know the exact date, but I do know that I have a copy of this on a CED disc that MGMUA put out, probably the same time they put out the beta and the VHS, which was 1983. Okay, well, at least the CED disc was 83.
So that jives with, especially the time frames of video releases and stuff back then. It would have been well after any kind of theatrical run. But it was produced by Golden Globus Productions, of course, and distributed by Cannon Film Distributors. Rated R, total runtime of 1 hour and 29 minutes. On IMDb, it's listed as a horror/thriller, and it was filmed in different places around Los Angeles and in Hollywood, a couple various studios and spots.
I know that the hospital was an abandoned hospital that they shot in. It was an actual hospital, but it was abandoned at the time they were shooting.
I meant to look up something about that, and then I kind of forgot to swing back around. So I assume that was somewhere there in the Hollywood, L.A. region where this old hospital was, I assume.
Yeah, I didn't get the exact name or what the hospital used to be called or where it was. I do remember reading something about it, though, being an actual hospital one time that was abandoned at the point they were shooting it.
It was directed and the story written by Boaz Davidson, like Austin mentioned, who would best be known for The Last American Virgin, Going Bananas, that goofy-ass movie with Dom DeLuise.
I got that on VHS, too, sadly.
And JJ from Good Times. He also, honestly, these days, he's more known as being a producer for New Image and then Millennium Films. And, Austin mentioned some of that stuff there, like the newer Rambo movies, Expendables, stuff like that. I mean, his name's on a ton of stuff all the way up till, very recent stuff, and he's still active today. Also, the screenplay was done by Mark Bim, who worked on or wrote the movie Help, the Beatles movie in the 60s. Someone Behind the Door, that was... Anthony Hopkins, I believe it was, and Charles Bronson, I believe was in that one.
Oh, yeah.
He wrote that. He also wrote 2 god-awful Cannon movies, Lady Chatterley's Lover and Nana. Oh, just wait. Wait, my friends. Just wait. I always tell y'all when we do Cannon Fodder, there's worse. I just named 2 of them right there.
So you've had the displeasure? I haven't seen it yet, but you've seen
I've seen both.
Nana?
Yeah, I've seen Lady Chatterley's Lover and Nana.
I remember seeing Lady Chatterley's Lover probably back on Wacky Not Supposed to, watching around the, trying to sneak a peek in them.
Both of those movies are just like that. They're movies that, obviously are like the adult, like period pieces. But yeah, they're just bad. Just bad. Oh, just wait. Like I said, this movie stars Barbie Benton as Susan Jeremy. Now, once again, Austin brought up that she was a Playboy playmate. She actually also lived with Hugh Hefner for many years, like 6-7 years, through the late 60s, early 70s. I guess she was one of his... I don't know if the dude ever actually got married, did he? Like, wasn't he kind of just...
I think he was married, like, once, maybe twice.
But for the most part, he always just had, like, a playmate that was just living with him for a while, and then that one would move out, and then another one would move in kind of thing, right? That was always his thing, I guess. But she was one of them back in the late 60s, early 70s. She played on a good handful of episodes of Love Boat, Fantasy Island, tons of TV. Then eventually at some point in the 80s, early 90s or so, she just got out of show business. I think it was around the late 80s. She just left the business completely. It also stars Charles Chip Lucia as Harry. He would probably be better known, possibly, or at least as known for people that would be listening to this podcast, as he had a small role in Society, one of Smoke's favorites. Singanor. I've never seen this movie, but it looked wacky as hell. Singanor.
I have. That's a fun one that we definitely need to get. Actually, it's a sequel to a movie called Scared to Death, which was a sort of low budget, kind of underrated little horror movie with a creature. I don't want to give away too much about it. Just say it's got a creature in it. Okay. Creature feature mixed with a slasher kind of thing. But Singanor was sort of a sequel to it that is wacky and it's out there, and it's got David Gale from Reanimator.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah. That's what it looked like. It looked crazy, like kind of nutty. And
it is prime for our new series that we will at some point mention that we're doing, but it's prime for that.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And also he was in The Hand That Rocks the Cradle. Tons of other TV shows and movies and stuff, but those are some of the ones that stood out. And then of course you have John Van Ness as Jack. He was in Tourist Trap, The Hitcher, Alligator 2, The Mutation. Once again, tons of other TV roles and small roles in movies and stuff. And Michael Frost as Ned. I only mention him because he had a bit role in New Year's Evil. So, Donnie, I didn't want to give too much away for your connections. I'm sure some of that.
Yeah, appreciate it.
But I saw that and I was like, you know what? This needs to be pointed out. I just wanted to make sure it got in there.
One thing to mention, like Austin mentioned, and you also mentioned that, Barbie Benton, she was a Playboy playmate, and also that, like Austin said, she spends a lot of time in the movie rather than the running around and doing all that stuff. The other part he said was that getting stared at by a lot of creeps in the movie.
Yeah.
Well, also she was getting stared at by a lot of creeps. Well, I don't know if you call them creeps necessarily, but let's just say that according to Boaz Davidson in an interview, he said that the day that she shot her nude scene on the set was the set was packed that day with crew members.
I don't doubt that. But yeah, we'll get into the gratuitousness of it all with her.
It's intermission time. Time to pause and refresh at the snack bar. During this short break, you can treat your taste of good food and sparkling cold beverages, including delicious Coca-Cola. If you're hot dog hungry, we have them. Sizzling, juicy hot dogs served in warm, oven-fresh buns. Plus a complete menu of all your favorites. Visit the Refreshment Center now. Enjoy delicious food and ice-cold Coca-Cola.
For you, the listeners of the All-American Spook Show, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. So I went over to Audible, typed in X-Ray to see what would pop up, and of course nothing to do with this movie at all. And I actually typed in Hospital Massacre first, and nothing at all came up, which I guess is a good thing, I guess, right?
Yeah, there hadn't been any Hospital Massacre.
Yeah, in a real world scenario, that's a horrible thing. But I did have a few things to come up here when I typed in X-Ray. We've got A to Z Mysteries, the X'd Out X-Ray, The Art of X-Ray Reading, How the Secrets of 25 Great Works of Literature Will Improve Your Writing by Roy Peter Clark. That one's a little over 8 hours long. Then we've got, X-Ray Vision, Ginger Baker, The Man, Myth, and Legend by Jeffrey Giuliano. That one's just over an hour long. You'd think it'd be longer if you're talking about Ginger Baker, but there you go. If any of that stuff sounds like it floats your boat, go on over to audibletrial.com/spookshow. Again, that's audibletrial.com/spookshow for your free audiobook. It's always a cool deal. I mean, like, you get that one credit, take the credit, get yourself a book. Even if you're like, this isn't for me, you get to keep the book. So it's a win-win. It helps us out. You get a free book out of it. So I'm going to pop on over to IMDb, click on plot summary and see what pops up. We've only got a couple here, believe it or not. Actually, no, there's two. I thought it was kind of one run-on, but no, it's two different ones. We've got the main one. While receiving a routine checkup, a woman finds herself stranded on the hospital's 8th floor while someone dressed as a doctor is intent on her never leaving, even if it means killing any staff member who comes into contact with her. And then the other one, this was posted on IMDb by Matt-282. Divorcee Susan Jeremy goes to a local Los Angeles County hospital for a routine exam and finds herself stranded there while a maniac, dressed in a doctor's surgical mask and clothing, goes around killing all the staff. Could it possibly be the psycho Harold who killed a friend of Susan's on Valentine's Day 19 years earlier? We'll never know. I guess you have to start with that. You have to start right from the beginning when you're talking about this movie with that little flashback scene, right?
Yeah, because at least that and maybe one or two other scenes are the primary Valentine's Day influences in the movie, I guess.
By the way, who the hell, like, in that flashback scene, because I think all it says is, like, Susan's house, 1961. So, like, you're like, first off, you're like, who the fuck is Susan? You know, but you know, you figure it out, you know, pretty quick after that.
I'll find out later.
Yeah. But, like, who decorates their house out for Valentine's like that? Like, you know, like, I can see if it was Christmas or, I don't know, you know, a few other major holidays, Halloween, maybe even July 4th, but is it common even back then to decorate your house out for Valentine's like that?
I mean, I never did. I don't know. Maybe I was. No. I didn't think so. Maybe I'm in the wrong then.
Yeah.
Probably say no.
I don't remember once ever any kind of decorating for Valentine's. Maybe unless like
all I remember about Valentine's was school. You know, when you were a kid, going to school and giving out your little Valentines and getting Valentines and candy with the Valentines.
Yeah.
That was basically what I remembered as a kid at that age that they were about Valentine's.
And I don't remember that really being about the Valentines, you know, as a kid. That was more like, what kind of candy am I getting, you know, kind of thing.
Yeah. Yep.
But yeah, that's about it. But yeah, I just found it funny that they just had, and there was Valentines everywhere. It's like they were just mailing it in, like, or telegraphing it in, whatever. Like, hey, look, Valentines. Even though that was the only moment pretty much that had anything to do with Valentine's the rest of the movie, right? Like, other than
we'll get to that part.
That
I
the
guess.
hospital is decorated, right, in some spots as Halloween. Yeah.
Well, the gift that she gets at the hospital a little later.
Yeah.
the killer leaves for her, you know, we'll get to that part.
Once again, the connections are there. It's not as loose as some other holiday movies that we talked about. So, you know, at least there's that. But this kid, Harold, gives Susan a Valentine. She goes and looks at, look, Harold gave me this. And there's this other kid. I don't even know if they named the kid, right? The other kid that's there. He's just like, man, fuck Harold. They ball up the Valentine and throw it down and laugh. And then she's like, all right, I'm going to go in here and get a snack. And then, like, she comes back and that kid is just straight up hung on a fucking coat rack. Like, was he impaled, hung? I don't know what happened to him, but he's just hanging there dead on a coat rack.
And man, Harold, well, we didn't mention this yet, but Harold was outside the window the whole time watching her get the Valentine, crumble up the Valentine, throw it on the floor, and then as she leaves to go. Also, this is another thing. When she went to get a piece of cake, she reaches in the drawer and gets this giant fucking butcher's knife out.
Yeah, like that was basically machete.
I think
it's a machete.
It's a giant. It is definitely a giant knife, but like it looks even bigger because it's a little, you know, like 10-year-old girl holding it, but still, it's fucking huge. Like, want some cake?
Yep.
You know, she's got a sword.
That's the first time in the movie, and it happens a lot in this movie where they sort of telegraph this fake kind of like something's gonna happen, somebody's gonna die type scene. You know, she's walking to the camera with a knife like she's about to stab her friend or whatever.
Yeah.
But then she shows the knife goes down and boop right into the cake. Right. So that happens many other times in this movie where they sort of misdirection to make you think that something else is happening. You know, like somebody's going to get killed or somebody's dead or whatever the case. We'll talk about those more as we get to them too. But
it's like the way Harold is staring at them, like peering at them through the window. No wonder they crumpled it up and thought he was a weirdo. Like he's like full on psychopath the way he's staring in, like with, you know, like his brows are furrowed and he's kind of like, yeah, look at that Valentine, you know. But they don't see him. But still, it's just the beginning, like you said, of the creepiness, because there's a lot of that. Basically, you could call this movie Creepy Shady the movie. You know, because it's like everybody is fucking creepy or shady as fuck. Everybody.
You'd have to use more than one hand to count the amount of creeps in this movie. And there's not like there's a whole shitload of characters in this movie either.
Yeah. When I was taking my notes, I wrote down that they should call the place Nasty Shady Hospital, because that's what it is. It's just a fucking nasty. Everybody's shady. There's a floor. I think they said it's the 9th floor, right? That's being fumigated. Like,
yeah.
Would that even be a thing? Like, would they just close a whole wing down of the hospital to fumigate it? Like,
or whatever. I think they were delousing.
Wouldn't they just close the whole hospital down as opposed to just one floor? I don't know. I mean,
well, that brings me to that was yet another one of those, that whole elevator scene when she gets in the elevator, and this is Susan later on in life as she's coming to this hospital to get some checkups done or whatever. And she's in that elevator. And the first thing is this is where we're introduced to, I think his name is Harold. Mm-hmm. One of the sort of mental cases walking around the hospital, right?
No, his name's Harry, and we'll get into that a little bit later on.
Oh, Harold. No, that's right. Oh, wait a minute. Is there more than one? I mean, I'm talking about not the doctor, but the guy drinking the liquor and
random
scenes.
Drunk.
Oh, the hamburger elevator guy.
Yeah, but I thought his name had an 8.
No, that's
maybe
the
not.
drunk.
Maybe not.
I don't know what the fuck that guy's name was, but he's just the drunk. Yeah. It's just he keeps popping up. Like, why would this hospital have this random drunk just milling about? And they're like, Hank or whatever the fuck his name is. Every time a nurse finds him, I don't know, but I don't remember. But every time they find the guy, they're like, "Get back to your ward." You know, like, no, this dude's just walking around with like a bottle of Mad Dog 2020, just messing with everybody in there, staring at him.
But that first scene in the elevator, though, he's just slumped over in the corner with like what looks like blood coming out of his mouth. She sees blood coming out of his mouth, and then she just keeps staring at him, and he's just sitting there like he's dead, basically. And then she's looking at her shoe, and this blood. I mean, you want to think it's blood, right? Hits her shoe, and then she looks at him again. He's like, "Oh!" And then he's got like a burger in his hand and ketchup all over his fingers and shit.
That is the sloppiest burger, man.
Oh, it just adds to the nastiness.
That's gross.
It's fucking nasty.
I think that was my first laugh out loud moment of this movie too, and not because it was trying to be funny necessarily, but just because of the absurdity of that scene. Like,
who eats a plain hamburger with like 42 gallons of ketchup on it?
Well, if you think back to Nothing But Trouble.
Okay, well, I guess if that's the precedent you want to set, like, speaking of just nasty random shit, this hospital, like, Susan multiple times just fires up a cigarette. Like, I guess that's just the sign of the times, right? Like, you know, it's 1981. Not everyone's aware or cares, I guess, of the dangers of smoking. So, like, fuck it. You know, she's sitting there waiting on her test results, which is a loose premise to keep her there. Right.
Well,
like,
she doesn't seem too concerned about staying there. I mean, every time she gets to a certain hurdle, in other words, her results come back. Well, we need to keep you here for this. You know, and finally they, you know, at some point, and then we'll get to the story. They restrain her when she starts to like, okay, I need to leave. No, you guys, you know. So at any given point, she could have just walked the hell out.
There's a lot of shady stuff. There's a lot of shady stuff that keeps, like, there's this random doctor that you only see like in full scrubs, right, with mask and everything. That this guy keeps popping up, and eventually he's, you know, as we go along, you know, he starts killing people, but he's messing with the records and stuff, right? Like, I guess he gets the records of like an 85-year-old person that's dying of colon cancer or something like that, and just writes her name on it. And then now all the doctors are like, "Oh my God, she's gonna die." You have
that brings us. Might as well break into that one doctor here, right? You want to go into because you know we're talking about the records, and then the X-ray that gets hence the name of the movie. Really, the pivotal point of the movie is the killer swapping the X-rays around to, like you said, this older guy with colon cancer or something.
Yeah.
So that this doctor who's looking at the X-ray now is seeing this, and that's why he's deciding to keep her there in the room, saying that they need to do further tests. And so I'll let you take over for
well then it just then it just becomes a thing where they're restraining her, like, at all times. Like, they're not like, "Yeah, we need you to stay here because we're trying to work this out." No, they're just they eventually ratchets up to the point where, like, they have to, like, tie her down to a table just until we. That's it. You're if you don't calm down, we're gonna have to do surgery. You know, like, Jesus Christ, let's slow down and figure this out here. You know, but they put her in a room, And once again, this is a sign of the times. Like back then, especially, there would always be like a kind of a community room thing, right? Like not everybody has their own room. Like you're just in a room with X amount of people. You know, there might be 10 other people in there or whatever. And there's 3 other ladies in this ward that she's in. Or I guess I could say, I guess it's safe to say there's 2 other ladies, and then I don't even know what the other one was, what the hell that was.
You got the spoon lady, old scowl face, and the trans woman with the rosary beads.
But they don't explain that at all. It's like if it's a trans lady, that's okay. But like they're just like. It's just randomly like, no, that's a dude dressed like a woman. Like, but they don't explain it. There's no.
Just there.
Yeah, she's just there. And then, like you said, the spoon lady, which kind of looks like an old gypsy or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
what else
that's exactly what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
And then bitch face Bessie or whatever in the bed. With
They are the face of this movie, and they pop up at such random times for no reason whatsoever. Continuity be damned. Like. Doesn't make any sense. Like, there's one of the scenes where they're walking around and on that fumigation floor, and then I think Susan is, and then she turns around and those 3 women are there again. Like
they're always together.
Yeah, they're all 3 walking down the smoky fumigated hallway, and they're looking for her doctor. Her doctor is one of the. I think that's one of the first kills, right? Her actual doctor, Susan's.
Dr. Jacobs.
Yeah, she gets offed and like stuffed in a closet or something, or no, in a locker.
Stuffed in a locker.
Yeah, and that's where the janitor eventually comes along and finds her, right, hanging upside down in the locker on the fumigation floor.
That whole scene's like I said, there's more of those misdirection scenes, as I mentioned, the one in the elevator with the hamburger or the bloods. It turns out to be ketchup, and then she opens up the elevator on the 9th floor or whatever it was, and then. Boom! The guys with the gas mask come out and they scare her again.
those gas mask guys.
You were fumigating you. Then later, when she's down there on those floors, and there's the was it when the janitor finds the body that there's like a can of paint spilled, or something like that. It looks like blood again. So there's all these misdirection.
It's
things.
like a sheet. It's a sheet over something that. Well, at that point we already know there's like a mannequin for some fucking reason.
Yeah.
Under a body. Or under a sheet. And then when he comes in, it looks like blood is pouring down. He pulls it back and there's a paint can under there. And that's when he finds her. But then the dude in the scrubs that's running around killing everybody, I think that's when he grabs a hold of him and sticks his face in the sink of acid, right?
Acid.
Why?
Yeah.
Why is there a sink of acid? I mean, at least that memorable scene, and I thought of Jason X, right, where he sticks the girl's face in that cryo thing. At least that made a little bit of sense, right? Like it's science, and you're on a ship and everything. But this doesn't make any sense. Like it's just in some kind of defunct laboratory or something. I guess maybe it's a janitor's room. I don't know what the fuck that room is. And
there's also a pretty terrible acid face effect too. After he comes out, he's just got a couple of latex, I don't know, just things pasted on his face to make it look like he's got burns.
Yeah, and it looks like he's spitting out applesauce, like.
yeah.
But then we come to one of the pivotal moments of the film. I think the uncomfortable, gentle caress, medical exam, which is legit because I'm sitting there, I'm like, Jesus, this is taking forever. After it was done. I went back. It was roughly somewhere between 6 to 7 minutes long of just him examining her and nothing else is going on. It's like, we're going to stop this movie right in the middle and we're going to make you look at Barbie Benton. That's all that was.
Dude, before that scene starts, how did he, first he told her to get undressed. When he walks in the room, he's like, oh, I need you to get undressed. And she's like, at first she's kind of like, what? And then she goes with it, but she goes behind this partition that he's got set up with a screen in front of it, but a really bright light behind it so he can see the silhouette of their...
Like plain as day.
It's like one of those like Bugs Bunny gags. He's getting changed behind the curtain and there's a wolf that walks in with his eyes bulging out like, woo! Yeah. And then she comes out. But I think the creepiest move of all... I mean, the whole thing is kind of skeevy, but the creepiest move during all that is when... she's naked, mostly naked, and she sits down on the table, and then he just like gently caresses her hair and puts it in front of her shoulders, Like, this has nothing to do with an exam. He's just like brushes her hair like, yeah, that's right. And then, puts it gently on her shoulder.
That's right.
Yes. Yeah, it's time for medical stuff. I forgot. Medical. Yeah,
but then she just, does her vitals, like checking her heartbeat and checking her blood pressure, but she's totally naked. It's like, this is how we do it at this hospital.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I don't know what hospitals you got to before, but this is how we do it.
And meanwhile, like, she might be dying of colon cancer or whatever the hell. They never say what is wrong, like supposedly wrong with her, do they? Like,
yeah, it just looked like she had worms or something.
They just stare at the X-ray, like every time. Like they just, yes. But they never say what could possibly be wrong. Just that this isn't good. That's the only conclusion you come to. But when he's doing the exam, he examines her from her toes up, like very slowly. I don't know if this is the way you would do this if you think someone's dying of colon cancer, right? Like I don't know if it comes with a foot rub and the gentle caress and everything. Boy, they really make you stare at it. I mean, which is not a horrible thing, right? I mean, it's there's that, but it could be worse. It could be like, here's the gentle caress exam of those 3 hags. So at least there's that.
That's true. It could have been worse. You're right.
What'd you think of the kill scenes? Like, I mean, I guess we can kind of go through them a little bit. Jack getting his head bone sawed off and then delivered in a box to Susan.
Yeah, that's the other Valentine's Day moment I was talking about. It was delivered in a Valentine's Day box sort of thing with and then she opens it up and there's the head in there.
And then the guy that's going around killing everybody, he's just gaslighting the fuck out of her this whole movie. But especially on that one, because he puts the dude's head in a box. She sees it, of course, freaks the fuck out. They bring her back into the room. They don't really address the situation. She's just like, there's a head in that box. And then, of course, he opens up the box and it's, what was it, flowers or whatever the fuck it was?
The cake. I think it was a cake fully icing and everything.
Yeah, it was a cake. Yeah. What's going on? What's the twist here? And by the way, probably before we get any too further into the twist part, this is a spoiler-filled podcast. So if you haven't seen it, I mean, we've given away quite a bit, but we haven't given away everything yet. So if you haven't seen the movie and you want to, this might be a good time to pause, go check the movie out, and then come back, because we're getting to the twist here in a second. But there's not a lot of it makes sense in the way that, like, how would he know? Well, I guess he's posing as this person that's coming after her. He's posing as a doctor, right? How would he know she's coming there that day for these test results? I guess unless he's just creeping around until finally today's the day she's coming for these random test results.
That brings me to another thing too, and I don't know if we're not necessarily going to give away the killer yet, right?
No, we'll do that in just a second.
Well, there's a certain scene where I'm not going to say who it is, that the killer does something, and we'll get does something to make you think that it's not going to be him. It's a blatant sort of thing, and I'll talk about it once we actually get to the reveal of the killer. I'll come back to this point.
And that goes hand in hand with not only, like you said, that they make you think one thing throughout the movie and everything, but everyone, literally everyone, including pretty much her own daughter, is almost seen as a suspect in this, right? Like, I guess a smarter person than me could sit there, as you're watching this for the first time, and you could probably figure it out. And we'll explain why you should be able to figure it out pretty easily. But the way they kind of bait and switch, however you want to phrase it, like everybody, just everybody, the janitor that creepily stares at her as she's just checking in, and then just follows her down the hallway, or like I said, even her daughter kind of cuts a side eye at her, and her ex is taking care of their daughter and then just decides to leave. So now he's a suspect, right? Like, he just leaves his fucking and they never explain that either, by the way, right? Like, at some point, her ex is at home with her daughter, and then like she calls her daughter answers and says, "Oh, Daddy left. He said he had to go do something," which makes him a suspect, but then they never explain what he left to do.
Why?
Yeah.
It's like they didn't care about that. As long as you think he might be a suspect, that's all they cared about, it seemed like, right?
All we care about is that you suspect everybody.
There's never any loopholes closed.
No.
It's just a shitload of red herring. Everybody's a red herring.
Yeah, they had no time for loophole closing. But yeah, getting back to the point a second ago, what did y'all think of we'll get into the gore score and everything, but like, were you sufficiently happy with the amount of gore, or the kills that you saw, or what do you think about?
Not really. I was kind of, I don't know. It's kind of overall kind of disappointed with the maybe not the methods, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe I just expected more.
I do think some of them were clever as far as trying to be like medical connected.
Yeah.
You know, like the one that was hilarious when he's got the sheet. He's got a sheet and he's running down the hallway.
Yeah.
What was that?
I don't know. It was fucking weird, but it was funny and
it was
cool.
funny.
It was different.
It was
but he's got a sheet and he's just running down the hallway, like actually not even running. He's just kind of briskly walking towards her. Meanwhile, this nurse can't get away.
Despite there being like 7 doors down the hallway, she just keeps running
sees him
down
down this long ass hospital hallway. She sees him a mile away and still like and can't completely get away. And then when he grabs a hold of her, he puts the sheet over her head and stabs her with a syringe full of God knows what. Maybe that's zinc acid. I don't know what it was. Stabs her with
a whole syringe full of something.
Honestly, after that, I thought she was going to roam down the hallway, like just kind of bumping into the walls or something. But no, she just slowly just falls on the floor, and then that's it.
What about the one where one of the nurses, he killed her and then just put her in a wheelchair and shoved her in a room?
That was awesome. Yeah. That was probably, oh man, aside from Jack getting his head cut off with a bone saw, that was probably my favorite kill because it was just so unexpected.
I think to your point a minute ago, like, yeah, some of, I think the amount of gore, and we'll get to that with the gore score, is a little disappointing, but I think there's still a good amount of fun to be had with what you get here. Some of the kills are more memorable than others. So if nothing else, you take that away from the end of the movie. It's like, well, there was a few, like the sheet kill and a few others that were memorable that you take away when you think about this movie. So I guess in that regard, it's, as far as on my end of things, that was one of the better ones, though, the sheet thing. It reminded me.
My favorite kill was probably the guy staring at the X-ray. I can't remember which doctor. He was looking at the X-ray, and then you hear something behind him or whatever, and then he's like looking at the X-ray again. And all of a sudden, blood flies out of his mouth onto the X-ray, and then they cut to the scene again. There's like a knife had been stabbed through the sheet behind him into him, and he's like,
it's like a saw.
I thought that was cool.
It looked like a hand saw, like a bone saw type of. I don't know what kind. Some type of saw got shoved completely through his throat, and was like, as he's falling, they're ripping the sheet as he's falling. Yeah. But you can clearly tell, like, it's not like a prosthetic type of thing where they even tried to make it look like it was really going through his throat. It was just like beside his neck as it went down. Like, What about the one more random thing that I made a note of? The 3 guys in the total body cast. What the fuck was that?
Yeah, I don't know. Like what?
That guy wasn't even in bed. He was just in a chair. The other 2 guys on the side of him were in bed. So, he's like,
just walk in. They're all like,
like 3 guys.
Like I guess that's what you do.
It was such a Three Stooges moment. It's like 3 guys have just been in the worst accident possible, and they put them all in total body cast and stuck them all in the room with each other so they can't communicate. It made no sense. This movie
is like totally absurd in certain moments like that. Just absurdity, just out of it, and also funny, with the wheelchair kill, and he just slams her into the room or whatever. All these moments like that, and then the drunk / mental guy or whatever.
The 3 hags.
He's like looking in the window at the Barbie Benton nude scene too, right? Like when she's getting naked on the doctor's doing his thing, and he's like, the nurse catches him. He's like, "Get back to your room," and he goes back. But then another woman comes out of her room, and he follows her up, and then he just starts looking in the window again.
There's another. There was that other random old guy patient that when she was sitting outside the office waiting for her test results, he just walked up to her and stared at her, and then he slowly, slowly walked away.
Like, what the hell kind of hospital is it anyway?
It's like I said, it's more mental asylum than it is just general hospital. It was nuts. But I guess we'll get to the big reveal. The big reveal is that the doctor that has been helping her along the way throughout the movie at different times, his name is Harry. The big reveal is that Harry is Harold. the kid from the beginning of the movie that killed the other nameless kid for balling up the Valentine.
Yep.
Like I said, I'm walking. I'm like, I wonder. The first time I watched it, I'm like, I wonder who the killer is. This is everybody's a suspect. Who is it? And then you're like, oh, wait a minute, it's the guy that has the same name as the fucking kid from the beginning. Why didn't I see this from moment one? Harry is Harry.
It might be because they made every single person in the movie be a suspect, and yet maybe it's because you either you just don't think of it, or the fact that it couldn't be as obvious as the person named Harry is the actual killer.
No, it's that obvious.
But the part, to get back to that point I was talking about before, where they throw you off the trail of it being him, is whenever the secretary's in there typing the thing up, blah, 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 and she gets killed and is thrown in the thing. And then shortly after that, Harry walks in asking, hey, so-and-so, whatever her name was, and then she's not in the room. He's like, oh, and he sees, because the killer, after he killed her, put this paper in the typewriter, right? This other extra paper, right, that she was supposed to have been typing, swapped it out with paper. So Harry, who is the killer, comes into the room, snatches that paper out, and leaves. So why, the fuck, other than them throwing you off the trail, why would the killer put this fake paper in there and then come back in and take the fake paper out of it? That was ridiculous.
That's a good point. I actually forgot about that.
Well, it's throwing. It's bad writing.
It's throwing you off.
It's bad writing, what it is. But it's trying to throw the viewer off. But that's there's more clever ways to do it than that.
Yeah, in reality, the killer's not going. The killer would have just had the paper with him. It's just I don't have to put this in the typewriter as if I'm going to come back in and pull this fake paper out. I think it's the real paper.
So Harry finally reveals himself as like, I'm that boy, and so there's a big chase, and that ensues. They fight back and forth and all that, and basically, remember I mentioned that Susan keeps firing up cigarettes throughout the hospital and various points in the movie. Well, smoking saved her life in the end, because that's how she took him out, was her cigarette lighter. By the way, how did he go up in flames? I forget.
She spilled flammable liquid on him. There's a scene earlier on, the first time when she was chasing him, she was climbing up that ladder thing or whatever it was, a stair thing, and there was for some reason, there was this open container of flammable liquid up there, and she just dumped it on his head.
Okay, now I remember.
Yeah, it was in a beaker.
I remember.
Is it a beaker? Random flammable fluid in a beaker sitting open up there, or whatever. She poured it on him, and then later though is when they get to the flames, because after that, I forget what there was a couple of scenes of her fighting him off and getting away before you get to the flame scene.
It's like a solid 10 minutes of it's like a 10-minute cat and mouse game. Once he
really, that stuff probably would have dried up on him before she ever even got the lighter on him. But anyway.
But yeah, that smoking saved her life, because she's able to take the lighter. I guess he's dousing that fluid, lights him on fire, and then one of the best parts is when he's on fire and falls off the top of the building. I think it was, or out a window or something.
He jumps off after he's chasing her.
Yeah, and it's clearly
Del Toro move or something.
And it is clearly a dummy that has been set on fire and tossed off the top of a building.
And then it goes splat. On.
Hey, now I have to say though, as far as dummy scenes go, maybe the initial, whenever it makes impact, that was okay. That wasn't too bad. Like, y'all haven't seen Dr. Butcher MD yet. When we get to that,
well, but we have
stupidly ridiculous scene.
But we have watched Never Too Young to Die, and I will agree that
that's pretty terrible.
This one was better than that one. I'll give you that.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh my God, Donnie, wait until you get around to that one on old Spookshow Rewind.
That reminds me, we need to do a cut. We need to do an edit of all the dummies that have, especially the terrible dummy scenes. That
we've had this adds to it, but we've had a few in the history of the Spook Show. That's for sure. You could definitely do some supercut of all the dummy falls and people on fire and all that shit. But at the very end, though, is like, well, that guy's dead, and then it's like next morning, nothing happens. She comes out of the hospital, and her ex-husband and her daughter show up to greet her, and then they hug. The end. It's very abrupt.
It's very abrupt. In fact, it's like right there. Like, as soon as he goes over, it's like she's walking out the next morning. Oh, hey, but credits, bam.
Yeah, but like, just look at the scene as a whole. Not only is she come out, they just happen to greet her at that moment. It's the happy ending, but everybody coming in and out of the hospital is treating it like a normal day. So it's just like, well, 12 people didn't just get massacred overnight, and there's no police scene or anything. It's just, all right, well, good night.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. But, well, the good times keep rolling with our ratings. So, Smoke, you brought this to the table. So, not only do we want to get your regular, star rating that we give to horror movies, but we also need to get your Cannonball ratings. What do you have to say?
I'll go with the actual regular rating, star rating first. I enjoy this movie for what it is. It's absurd. You can laugh at it in certain scenes. It's also surreal. It's got these moments that are like, almost like, damn, did Wes Craven get a little bit of a influence from being seen some of these, like the scenes of and I don't know why the bug dust would be floating around still when they were like, spraying for lice on floor 9, but for some reason, apparently it's still up in the air, and there's foggy moments when they're walking on that floor. Remember the scene where she's walking, and then those 3 old biddies, 2 old biddies and one guy dressed as an old biddy, whatever, is walking through the bug fog stuff towards her and talking about whatever. I mean, there's just absurd, like, surreal moments like that. Why the hell are any of them on that floor if they're, fumigated? But whatever. And then the sheet walking, running down the hall with the sheet. For some reason, Freddy Krueger popped in my head in that scene. Like the scene where he's got, in part 1, where his hands are really long and he's
I can see it. Yeah.
There's certain moments that are like dream-like, nightmare-like in the cinematography, I guess, carried out. But I mean, they're plugged into this movie with this really absurd other parts that are going on. It's just a strange movie overall. For that, I think it's somewhat original. And it's not original in its slasher stuff, because that's very derivative. But just in those odd moments, cinematography moments, whatever you want to call it, the way it's shot and lit and all that, it's just odd, different.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I probably give it a little bit of a leeway with that. With those scenes that are fairly frequent throughout the movie and just kind of interesting or whatever. If it wasn't for that stuff, it'd be a much lower rating for me, I think, because, like I said, the slasher elements are extremely derivative, even though this is early. This is 1981.
Yeah.
And it's already derivative. There's already much better slasher movies made before this one, and there's only been a handful made before this one. So I think I'll have to go with 2.5 stars on the regular star rating. When it comes to Cannonballs, I think, it's not going to be too much more. I'll go 2 3/4 stars. I mean, it's 2 3/4 of Cannonballs and 2.5 on the stars. It's not that vastly different between, but I mean, I don't think it's as far as the Cannon movies go, this is not top tier Cannon either. And as far as like regular movies go, it's one of those that I've only seen it once back in the day before watching it again this time, and it'll probably be some years before I get back to it again, if I do. So it's one of those that's not going to be highly watchable again for me. So like I said, that 2.5, I'll stand by that for the stars, and 2 3/4 for Cannonball.
All right, Donnie, what do you say?
Yeah, it's all great points. All great points by Smoke. Yeah, it definitely has some comedic elements, whether intentional or not. I mean, it is a fun movie to watch. My rating is, typically going to reflect whether, I would watch it again. So for me, it has to be 3 stars or more for that to happen. It doesn't quite hit the mark for me. But I'm going to echo Smoke's star rating at 2.5. And my Cannonball rating is going to be 2 1/4.
Yeah, I mean, like for most of the reasons you guys have said, I agree. It is fun though. Some of the more memorable scenes will stick with you. When you think about the movie. But that being said, the movie overall is not very memorable. There'll be certain scenes where you'll be like, oh yeah, the sheet thing, or these 3 hags and stuff like that. Things when someone mentions the movie, you'll be like, oh yeah, it was that one with this and that. But overall, it's like, okay, And like you said, it feels derivative years later when you look back on it. But at the time, it might have been, I ain't going to say it was cutting edge or anything like that, but it might have been, this was one of those movies that kind of set the bar. In the sense of like, these are the examples of, everything that was happening after Halloween and after Friday the 13th. When you look back on it now. At the time, I don't know how, I don't think it was well received, obviously. It was kind of one of those, straight to video type of things eventually that probably more people saw when they rented it on VHS than they ever did in a drive-in or a movie theater anywhere. So it's fun though. So I think that being said, I still think I'm going to go a little tier below y'all just based on some of my other movies. I'm going to go with my star rating with 2. Fun to be had, but overall just, for the most part forgettable unless you think about those few random scenes. The Cannonball scale, I don't know if I can go much higher than what I just gave star rating. Because I know there's some shitty Cannon movies, but I guess it's not, this isn't a good one. So I guess I'm going to be like Austin and say 2.5 because there's way worse and there's way better, and it's fine enough. You can have a good time with it. So I guess for the Cannonball scale, which is slightly skewed, I'll go 2.5. Just wait until we get to Na-Na, and then then we'll wish we were watching Hospital Massacre again. But we don't have Will here to do his kill count. But Donnie, I guess I'll toss to you first to get your connections.
Connections from the crypt.
All right. So yeah, you kind of you didn't really steal my thunder earlier, but you mentioned John Van Ness, who played Jack. He also played a trooper in The Hitcher, which we covered in episode 15. And then also Michael Frost and E.L. Woody both had bit parts on New Year's Evil all the way back on episode 89. When that was actually, I think that was the first, technically the first Cannon fodder we did.
Yeah, kind of retroactively became the first one,
So yeah, that's on the cast side. On the crew side, we do have some of the special effects crew from The Return of the Living Dead and Invasion USA. So those are past Spook Show episodes that share the same cast and crew with X-Ray.
Gore score.
Yeah, for the title, well, at least for the title I know it under, most like Austin will say in the title he knew it under most as well, Hospital Massacre. You expect maybe a bit more in the gore department when you throw the word massacre in there. Now, granted, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, if we're being honest, doesn't have a lot of gore. It's got a lot of implied type stuff. I mean, there's a lot of it's a disturbing sort of movie based on what's implied. Well, this movie doesn't have the chops that Tobe Hooper did when he put together Texas Chainsaw Massacre. To make you feel those kills without a little bit of gore. So they do have a little bit, but it's not as a massacre would imply, And as this show is, this segment, Gore Score, is based on Chaz Balin's Gore Score. I'm going to say what he gave it first in his Deep Red Horror Handbook. So his Gore Score was a 2. I think that's maybe a little too low. I think I would go a little bit more than 2. Just because, I don't know which cut he saw, and I'll also bring this up since we're talking about the Gore Score, the 2 different cuts, U.S. versus U.K. Now, I don't know which one he saw. I would assume he saw the U.S. cut. It had, it's got the bone saw thing. It's got the head in the box. It's got the knife kill. That was the saw/knife kill, through the guy's mouth when he puts blood on the X-ray, and he's like, But the prosthetics aren't really there for that. It's not that. It's a cool scene and one of my favorite kills in the movie, but it's it's not handled. The special effects weren't handled that expertly. So I think it could have used a lot more gore in it. I think I'll give it myself. I'll give it a 4. I'll bump it up 2 more than what Chaz gave. He gave it 2. I'll give it a 4. But the cuts I was talking about, the UK cut, for whatever reason, and I don't know why they would cut this much out. Granted, everybody knows that the UK had the video nasties back in the 80s, which movies that were overly violent would get banned or would get heavily cut. I don't believe this one was on the video nasties list. It did get released over there, but it was cut by it was 77 minutes total runtime, and the U.S. cut was uncut at 89 minutes. So I don't know what the hell they cut out of it. It wasn't that much gore to cut that much out. So I don't know why it was that shorn of footage, but for whatever reason in the UK it was the R-rated, whatever their equivalent R rating is over there. It was 77 minutes in the uncut version here in the US, which was R-rated, but intact, was 89 minutes. And also, I might as well read. Chaz Balin wasn't too thrilled with this movie at all, and his ratings. I think 4 skulls is his highest rating. He gave this one half a skull.
Wow.
And a couple of two sentence review. Former playmate Barbie Benton barely outacts the stiffs, falling around her in this trashy, thrillless hairball of a movie, also known as X-Ray. Don't expose yourself to it, folks. That was Chaz Balin's advice.
That's a little stiff. That's a little stiff.
Yeah, the Barbie Benton's acting was.
Yeah.
Yeah, but maybe true, but I think overall he didn't. I don't always agree with Chaz Balin's ratings on everything.
Yeah.
This one I give it a little bit more of a higher rating as far as star rating and as far as gore score, but I can echo it. I can see where you would come across it that way.
Yeah, I mean, I think the conclusions that we draw from it is there's a lot of fun to be had, but it's not a great movie. It just kind of is what it is. You see it once or twice, you've seen it enough. But I would recommend at least checking it out once if you like those kind of movies. If you like early '80s slashers, I think there's some enjoyment to be had. As far as critic rating and aggregate reviews and everything, on IMDb it gets a 4.9 out of 10 stars, and that's over 3,000 IMDb ratings. Nothing for Metacritic, but over on Rotten Tomatoes, there wasn't enough critic reviews to aggregate a score, but there were enough in the audience score to give it 18%. So not good over on Rotten Tomatoes, but if you're looking for that early 80s kind of slasher flick, then this is another one. So there's that. So anyways, moving on. Next week, we get back to regularly scheduled programming with our next Cult Corner. And this is actually one that we spun the wheel. We all nominated something, spun the wheel, and Smoke, you won this one. So what are we going to be watching next week?
Yep. It's going to be the classic 1966 spaghetti western from Sergio Corbucci called Django.
And
you want to sing it? I know you're waiting for me to sing.
As soon as you just said the name of the title of the song,
like it was playing in my head, man. Django.
So anyways, we're going to be, and this is actually another first for the Spook Show as well, is that we're going to be doing a full-on Western, and it's not like a horror-themed Western or anything like that. Like, this is a full-on Western flick, because I think the only other one was Jesse James Meets Frankenstein's Daughter.
That's the only
Western.
Well, I feel we'll find out next week, but I feel very confident we're all going to like Django more than we like Jesse James Meets Frankenstein's Daughter. So
that's accurate.
But this isn't something we're going to do very often here on the Spook Show. But when we get a chance, and we'll squeeze some stuff like this in, and Cult Corner was a good spot to do it. So I think that was a good pull with Django. And IMDb synopsis is a coffin-dragging gunslinger and a prostitute become embroiled in a bitter feud between a clan of Southern racists and a band of Mexican revolutionaries. So we'll see what's what next week when we travel down the old right on the border of Texas and Mexico to visit with our old pal Django. So we'll see how that goes. So
you really can't say his name without singing it,
Yeah, it's there.
Whether you want to or not, whether it's in your head, whether you say it or whether you sing it, you still hear it.
Yep, exactly.
In the song.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, lots of fun to be had. So come back next week for our next Cult Corner, Django. And, of course, Will couldn't be with us, but he's usually around. And for Donnie and the Professor Smoke, I'm Josh. We're from the All-American Spook Show, and we encourage you to come back next week for Django.